Big round of applause. Please welcome to the stage, David Platt.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Hello. Yazoo Thessaloniki. How's everybody doing? Thank you. Thank you so much. It is great to be here. I'm so happy to see all of you. It really sucks doing this all by myself. You know what I mean? I love being in Greece. My wife and I vacationed here many years ago before our kids, and this is where our family really started. And, and so I was really glad to bring them back here. Mm-hmm. All right, you got my clicker. Let's get rocking and rolling. We're going to hear about why software still sucks. But because this is Greece, of course I need to invoke the muse, don't I? Okay. So, here, sing in me, O muse, and through me tell the story of our magical permutations of the holy opposites 1 and 0, of where they come from and where they have to go, and why they suck so badly, and how to make them stop. Sound good? You think Homer would have done that? Well, we take what we can get in this life, don't we just? Okay, who am I? She talked about some books. Well, you know, I used to be a developer. I used to be a serious coding developer. In fact, I wrote Microsoft's lead book on .NET. Anybody ever read that one there with the anvil on the cover? You're a tough audience, aren't you? Okay. Anyway, so I wrote code for many, many years, and I thought about it, though, and the problem was that the coding kind of stunk. So for the last decade or so, I've been doing user experience, and as Katrina mentioned, I teach it at Harvard, at the Extension School, their continuing education division. And the really cool thing about our continuing education division is this is open to anybody. And you can come to us in Cambridge, or you can even take this course online and see my lectures live and online if you want to do that. Go to harvard.edu and look at Google for my name, you'll find us. And I also write a column for MSDN Magazine, the back page column. How many of you guys read that? Come on, just raise your hand. Make me feel good, would you? But if you go to MSDN, search for it online, it's the back page column. It's Don't Get Me Started is the title. Once in a while, I let my cat write it here. Lots of cats here in Greece. My daughters really like that. we really enjoyed them. And, but I'm probably best known for this book, Why Software Sucks. All right? It's still in print. You can still find it on Amazon. I wrote this 10 years ago. And you know what? It was a very long time ago. Yeah, 10 years ago, the software industry was very, very different. That was before the whole mobile revolution happened. It was before the whole cloud revolution happened. And I tell you why software really sucks. And you know what? That hasn't really changed. Right? It's still the same, still sucks for the same thing for the same reasons, and it's a little bit depressing. But anyway, so why software sucks, and I like the Italian edition the best. Somehow I don't think that guy is very happy. So I wrote these books explaining what was wrong, and then here, this is my most recent book, came out last summer, The Joy of UX. This is what tells you how to fix it, right? The Joy of UX. Any resemblance to the joy of cooking or the joy of sex is one hell of a coincidence, now ain't it? But anyway. Software sucks, okay? Who out there is going to argue that users think your software sucks? Somebody want to deny it? Someone says, no, my software's okay. His sucks, but mine is great. Go on, somebody say it. No, you don't dare. Smart move. Software used to suck because we coded it poorly, right? Here, okay, remember those? We'd forget to check a return value or something like that, and the thing would blow up in our faces. That's why software used to suck. And 25 years ago, that might have been okay. But software, we started using it in many, many different locations. It became much more important to society than it used to be. And you're not just playing solitaire. Here, the nurse is using the software in an operating room. They've got a patient open on the table, and the surgeon's cutting the guy with a scalpel, and then there the nurse is using a personal computer. You see how much more important it is today than it was 25 years ago. And, well, some things never change. What can I say? But the point is not so much that We code it poorly because we can't. We know how to code it well. And in fact, a number of the speakers here are going to tell you how to code it even better. Coding is not the problem anymore. It used to be the problem, but today it is not the problem. What is the problem today? The problem today is choosing what to code, deciding what to code and what not to code. That is the real problem. Think of software that is good and helpful and easy to use, and software that is bad and hard to use. It is no more difficult to code the good one than it is to code the bad one, right? It's a question of deciding what to code, and here is a really good example of something that's really bad to do. Remember this last January? A missile alert. Careful, Hawaii, you're about to get nuked. Run, duck, cover. Remember that? Oops, sorry, my bad. False alarm. Think of all the bad stuff that happens, all of the, you think your life is going to end in 12 minutes, and think of all the, the expensive booze, chugged down in haste, the unwanted pregnancies, and cases of venereal disease caused by unsafe sex because, why bother with protection when we're getting nuked in only 12 minutes? But here, this is what happened. You see the one that's circled in red? That's what the user selected. And you see the one circled in yellow? That's what they should have been selected. Can you tell the difference between them? Because I can't really. And one is the test and one is the real alarm. And it's very easy to be moving down and just kind of sneeze and get the next one. This is an absolutely terrible design. If one of my students turned in a project like this, I would flunk their sorry ass so fast they would change their major to Sanskrit. And yet, this is what the emergency department in Hawaii is using now. Now, it would be no more difficult to code something with the tests on the left and the real ones on the right. They chose not to do that. These guys ought to be taken out and publicly flogged, but that's just me. Anyway, this, my friends, this is why software sucks today. All right. How did this come about? I will tell you exactly how it came about. It's actually fairly simple, and that is the expansion. Computers have just mushroomed in our lifetimes. Go back to 1994, and there were about, how many did I say? About 2 million users of the World Wide Web, and today there are 4,000 million users of the World Wide Web. Essentially, all of humanity is networked today. The user population has increased by a factor of 2,000. That means 2,000 times, not 2,000%. All right? And in changing in this huge, huge expansion, it has changed fundamentally in quality. 25 years ago, it was mostly programmers who wrote the code and also used the code. Almost everybody that used a computer was also a programmer themselves, so they wrote code that they themselves would like to use. Today, that's not the case. Today, almost nobody is a programmer. Very, very few people actually write the programs that most people use. And so your user isn't you. Developers are writing code for people that are different from themselves and fail to understand it. Here, Platt's first, last, and only law of software design, which is, know thy user, for he is not thee. All right? Your user is not you, your user is not you, your user is not you, right? Unless you are writing programs for a bunch of burned out computer geeks, your user is not you. The guys who write the front end of Visual C#, their users are like themselves. And if they would like something, well, it's a pretty good bet their users would like it too. Of no other class of developer is that true. The guys that write the front end of Microsoft Visual Basic are very different than the Visual Basic programmers who use it. The guys who write Word are even more different than the users who use Word. And so, right here, this is the main problem. Now, I will show you here just how different the users are from yourselves. For example, you're all developers. How many out there how many people are female there? Female people of the XX chromosome persuasion here. Okay, that's not even 10%. All right? And it used to be, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it used to be that the user population was all male. Now it's not. Now, here, the overall population is 52% female, and they all use computers all day, every day. Didn't used to be that way. It used to be developers were male, and so were the users. Now developers are still male, but the users are majority female. Your user is not you. All right? Try another one. Here, who does not have a college degree or is in the process of acquiring one? Almost nobody. Okay? Yeah, pretty much. What the hell? Almost nobody. And again, 25 years ago, in order to use a computer, in order to get your hands on a computer, you had to either make enough money from a college degree or be in college right then. Your user was not you. okay? But today, 82% of the US population does not have a college degree, but every single one of them uses computers all day, every day, and so does the rest of the universe. Your user is not you. Your users used to all be educated the way you are, but today they are not. And now this is my most famous one here, and I'll be curious to see how this works in Greece. Who here drives a car with a stick shift, with a manual transmission and a clutch? Well, that's almost everybody here. Okay, but in the US, it's not. In the US, here, it's about, when I ask this, it's about 12 to 14% drive cars with a stick shift, counting light trucks, right? And even here in Europe, it is going down, 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 down. And there's several reasons for it. One of them is electric cars like the Prius and the plug-in hybrids that we're getting to see. You can't have a stick shift on them. They need their smart transmission. The other thing that's happening is, you know why stick shifts are declining here in Greece? I'll tell you why. Cell phones. All right? You're trying to drive the car, and you're trying to talk like that. And the other reason that's going to really make them take a dive, Starbucks. You're trying to talk here, you're trying to drink your coffee, you're steering with your legs. How the hell can you shift gears, okay? But anyway, the point is that in the US, how many cars are sold with a stick shift? And the answer is just 1 out of 8. When I ask this question, when I teach at Microsoft and I ask this, how many would drive a car with a stick shift? I get about half the hands. How many do? I say, how many more would if your wives would let you? I get about half the remaining hands. And so 6 out of 8 Microsoft programmers, 3/4 of Microsoft programmers, 6 out of 8, think that something that's harder to learn initially, and then more work to use all day, every day, but gives you better control, 6 out of 8 Microsoft programmers think that's a good idea. Only 1 out of 8 of the general populace thinks that's a good idea. And in fact, it's even less than that, because all 6 of those geeks are in that 1 out of 8. Mm-hmm. Normal people don't drive stick shifts, at least not in the US. Right? Why? Because the control that a stick shift gives them is not something that they value. If they just click their heels 3 times and say, there's no place like the State Line liquor store, right? And just kind of magically be there, they would. Right? And so your user is not you. You value control, that's why you became a geek. Your user values ease of use over almost anything else. All right? Your user is not you. So, all right. Every single user. Anybody here ever worked tech support phones? Only 1 or 2. The more I think about it, the more any kind of designer, any kind of developer, before you're allowed to write code that somebody is going to use, you should have to work the tech support phones. You should have to talk to frustrated users who call in and say, God damn it, this thing isn't working. I need this for my daughter's vaccination and the birthday party, and she's coming, and my wife is pissed off at me. And you should have to answer those calls and try to calm the people down and hope they don't have a gun. All right, maybe not here, but in the US, you hope they don't have a gun. And you should have to do this, because every single user, you try and explain how the software works, and they say, I don't care. Every user says exactly the same thing. They say, I just want it to work. So, what a concept. And so here, I got an idea. Why don't we make it just work? All right? Why don't we make our software just work? Not fiddle with it and fiddle with it and fiddle with it, does this little thing, but make it just work, damn it. Why don't we do that? Well, let me show you some good examples of software that either just works, or fails to just work. Classic example here, kind of an oldie but goodie. This is Microsoft Word before the ribbon. And if you look, there is the user menu, there, the main menu, floating free over the document. You remember how that used to happen? You used to reach up to click the file menu, and you had a little too much coffee, so you overshoot by a couple of pixels. Yeah, you remember that, sir. Yeah. And you wind up dragging this around on the screen, all right? Has anybody ever done that because you wanted to? Have you ever seen anybody do this because they wanted to? Have you even heard of anybody doing this even once because they wanted to? No, they didn't. Why did Microsoft put this in? I'll leave that argument for another day. I only have 40 minutes here. But the point is that this does not just work. Some geek put this in for control. The geek valued it because they wanted to. The user did not. This is bad because it forces the user to become more like a computer, to behave more like a computer. Computers are diligent, they are thorough, they are precise. Users are none of these things. Humans are none of these things. That's why we invented computers, to be these things which we are not. As we invented bulldozers to be stronger than we are, and microscopes to see finer than we can see. We invented these machines to do things that we can't. We invented computers to be diligent, thorough, and precise on our behalf. And here, the computer is disrespecting, it is denying the fundamental humanity of the user. And that, my friends, is fundamentally wrong. On the other hand, let this be said that I'm just out to bash Microsoft. I mean, hey, I'll take my cheap shots where I can get them. But let's look at a good example here. This is Microsoft Word. I start typing in HTE, thing autocorrects to the. Okay, I wake up early in the morning. I'm up at 4 in the morning. Trying to get in a couple of hours of writing before the phone starts ringing, and my daughters need to be driven to school, and one thing or another. And I've had too much coffee and not enough sleep, and I'm typing as fast as I can, and the one hand moves faster than the other. I'll show it again here, and oh, doggone it. You see why software sucks? They think I wanted this control. I did not. I wanted to just click the damn thing, but will they do that for me? They will not. Don't ask me why. Anyway, the one hand moves faster than the other. I type in HTE, zing, and it autocorrects to the. Now, this is good for the same reason the other one was bad. This understands. This says, okay, Platsky, no problem. I understand. You're a human being. You poor, sleep-deprived, hyper-caffeinated human being. I know what you really meant. I know you meant the, man, I'll just do it. Don't even bother. They don't underline it with a red squiggle. They don't beep and make me come back and fix it. They just say, hey, I knew what you meant. That's cool. Keep on writing. I got your back. It's cool. This uses the computer to do what computers are good at. So the human being can do what human beings are good at. This understands, it respects. I would argue it enhances, it extends the humanity of the user. So this blends in very well. This props up the fallible human in a place where the human can actually use that. And so this is very good, in the same way the other one was bad. Okay, all right, let's do another survey. Who here has backed up your hard drive in the last week? Oh, you lie like a rug. Okay, first of all, I don't believe those hands, but but even if I did, that is not even 15% of the people here. Look, you are trained professionals, you know what to do, you know why you have to do it, and you still don't do it. You know how to do it, you know why, you know you need to, and you don't do it. Why don't you do it? Because you're lazy? Well, not exactly, but you have a hierarchy of needs, don't you? You have a list of things to do as long as your arm, don't you? And you have a bunch of different things, and if you don't get this thing done today, it is going to bite you good and hard. And if you don't get that thing done tomorrow, it is going to bite you good and hard. And if you don't back up your hard drive, it probably won't back up your hard drive. It probably won't bite you tomorrow. And you put it off, and you put it off, and you put it off until one day it bites you, and then you say, "Ah, damn!" and so you don't do it, neither does anybody else. All right, I had all of the pictures of my daughter's baby pictures. I had them all on my hard drive. And my hard drive crashed. And I lost all of those pictures. And my wife was mucho pissed off. And I had to pay somebody $1,500 to recover that one in a clean room, and I was not happy with that. I got most of them back. All right, $1,500 later. All right, that put the fear of God into my head. And I said, okay, fine, I'll be good from now on. I will download, I will run backups. I went to PC Magazine, I downloaded, I installed their editor's choice. And here, what's the first thing it showed me? Do you want it normal or do you want it easy? And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. No, time out, Normal is the opposite of easy, and not easy is the default. What is wrong with these people? I mean, this is 2017, for Christ's sake. Actually, 2018, see what I mean? And this is a very, very flexible program, okay? You can back up this, but not that. You can back up that, but not this. Unless you were expecting a subpoena from the Department of Justice, what do you ever want to back up other than everything? And you can say, how do you want to back up? Do I want to back it up with a normal backup? Oh, damn. How about an incremental backup, which is somehow not normal? I don't quite get it. And you can see I can enable a rollback. The hell is a rollback? I can do a mirror, compression, more compression, less compression. With security, I can have no security, 128-bit AES security. My mother calls me on the phone, Dave, it says 128 bits. Is that enough? I say, no, Mom, wait until next week. They're bringing out the 129-bit version. That's the one you want. It is enormously flexible. I can do it this way, but not that way, but not this way. I don't want any of that. What do I want? I do not want to back up my hard drive. I want to have backed up my hard drive, right? It's an important distinction. See that guy lying in the hammock drinking a lemonade? That's what I want. I don't want to be sitting there feeding floppy disks into the computer until doomsday. So what is this? This is Carbonite, the automated backup system. That's the one I use. It's saved my ass more than once. There's another competitor called Mozy, M-O-Z-Y. That's the other guys. What does that do? That goes to the internet and takes all your files, all your data files, and copies them up to their internet server. And then it hooks the file system, and every time one of your files changes, it waits for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, see if it's going to change again, and then it copies the changes up to the web. And so you don't have to think about it. You put it in, and you forget it until every year when you have to write them a check, but it's worth it. And so here, this just works. This other one does not just work. Which do you think is going to actually save your files? All right? Somebody out there tell me, what is the best method of birth control? Somebody tell me. Not having sex. Well, no, and I'll tell you why. You want to know what the very, very best method of birth control is? It's the one you use, right? That's a whole lot better than the one that would have been good, except you don't use it. Maybe in your case, sir, it's been a lot. You're a geek, aren't you? Yes. All right. So, and that's the point. The disk backup method that is the best one is the one that you actually use. And this one you will not use. Nobody will use. This one gets used. Maybe it's not compressed as much. The point is you don't really care. There's almost nothing you can do with this. There's almost no way you can change it. You can't even schedule it. Because it just runs in background all the time. You can turn it off if it for 24 hours if it seems to be blocking something. I've never actually had that, but just in case, you can turn it off. You can't even schedule it to run at 3 in the morning because the idea is that, hey, you may be making some changes during the day and you want them kept. So here, this is software that just works. And it's not all that flexible, but it's the one that gets used, and that makes it better. All right. Okay, so that is software that just works, as opposed to software that does not just work, all right? So we can write software that just works. How do we do this? Well, first we got to convince the boss. How do we convince the boss that our software should just work, all right? I did this calculation for a friend of mine, a hospital in Boston. We were talking about, we were going to write some code. We were talking about authentication, all right. And the question got asked, okay, suppose we put in just one extra click in the user interface. Reach out, you click the mouse. How long did that take? Reach and click. Is that about a second? Something like that. About a second, give or take. Okay, so we're going to click the mouse. One second. There are 1,000 PCs in their enterprise. Suppose there's one extra mouse click once a day. How much does that cost? We sat down and calculated. And the first thing we said, well, one click is about a second times 1,000 PCs. That's about 16 minutes of employee time per day from that one click. All right, doesn't sound too much, but follow where it leads. Convert to the universal common denominator of money, and what do you get? 16 minutes a day times $50 an hour is $13 a day. Now, obviously, that's a very high rate of pay for the janitors, but is low for the neurosurgeons. For nurses, that's about what you're paying in the U.S. today, with benefits and agency fees and sexual harassment sensitivity classes and things like that. You think I'm kidding, don't you? About $50 an hour is about what a nurse is running in nowadays. Okay. So $13 a day. Okay, well that's a rather large coffee habit for somebody to have, but it doesn't sound too bad, does it? Well, yes and no. Follow where it leads. Times 365 days a year, that's a $5,000 a year from just one click. All right, well, that's not great. It's not, it's worse than a $4,000 problem. It's not as bad as a $6,000 a year problem. But now, suppose, hospitals run around the clock, don't they? Suppose you click not just once a day, but once an hour. Suppose you have to stay logged in or something, you have to click once an hour. All right, times 24, hey, look at this. Hey, look at... I said, hey, look at this. You see each click? No, times 24, that is $120,000 of employee time per year pissed down a rat hole from just one click. All right? So, that starts to get to be a problem. Now you say, hey, look, if I get this time back, how do I know my nurses won't just play solitaire if I get this extra second back? And the answer is, well, if you just got 1 second back, that's probably true. But suppose it's not just one click. So you click here, type in a user ID, click there, type in a password, click submit, post it back, get the response. Suppose it's not just one click, suppose it's 25 clicks and a couple of posts. Well, now you start to see real time. The point is, you can do this calculation on the back of an envelope. Suppose instead you had automatic authentication. Suppose you came in and suppose the nurse just had to hold up a card or touch a fingerprint reader. Or Windows Hello, you see that? And you just look in the camera and bang, it recognizes you. Suppose you do that. Think of all you would save. So, software that just works as opposed to just not just work. You can do this back of the envelope kind of calculation and see, and the numbers get very, very large very, very quickly. So anyway, there's a lot of money in software that just works. Okay, what is another argument for software that just works? How do we convince our boss? Well, here, catastrophic error. Each one of these things is a case where data was typed into a computer in a manner other than what the computer was expecting. And an error was made and somebody died. All right? The Therac 25 was a famous radiation machine. The operators would type the operators got good at typing the data in, so they turned the thing on before the safety devices were in place. And long story short, they fried some of their patients and people died. There was American Airlines Flight 965. They typed in the coordinates, they typed them in wrong. They realized they typed them in wrong, but they couldn't change it in flight, so they flew into the side of a mountain. Oops, sorry, my bad. There is Betsy Lehman, medical correspondent for a newspaper, was being treated with chemotherapy for cancer, and long story short, they miscalculated the dose, and then they gave her too much, and that was quite literally all she wrote. The stuff smacked her heart, and that was the end of her. And the Mars Climate Orbiter, remember that joint US-Russian project? It flew all the way to Mars, and they typed in the mass of the spacecraft in pounds instead of kilograms, or the other way around. I can't remember which, and it hit the planet, flew all the way to Mars, $1 billion, flew all the way to Mars, and they typed in the wrong number, and bam! I think the Russian engineer was shot for that one, or so they say. The point is that here, users did not behave the way the computer was expecting. This software did not work, and somebody died in each one of these cases. Not what you're looking for. It's harder to calculate, obviously, what are the chances of this than the back of the envelope calculation. The odds of this happening is hard to calculate. But you see when it happens, it is really bad. Anybody work in the financial industry here? Banks, stockbrokers, anything like that? All right. Suppose the user clicks buy or goes to click the buy button, and just before they click it, you change it and it makes it sell. And suppose they sold when they meant to buy. Someone's going to be very, very, very unhappy very, very quickly, aren't they? All right? And if the software had just worked, they wouldn't have that. Okay, so. All right, why else? Well, here's another one, career ruination. You know what, boss? If this project fails, you are out on the street, and I'm a programmer geek. I'm actually productive. I can get another job. You're a bullshit manager, okay? You're not going to find one. Am I wrong? Here in Avon, the makeup guys, remember them? In Canada, they were doing a project, and long story short, it was so bad. They were a rollout of new water management system in Canada, and took a charge of $125 million US because they screwed it up. The UI was so bad, in fact, that the company's sales force of independent sales representatives found the new system so burdensome and disruptive to their daily routine that many of them left Avon. I mean, unless maybe they were looking for layoffs, maybe they were going to lay people off through bad software. I don't quite get it. But if you sell through independent agents and your software is so hard to use that your agents won't sell for you, well, is that a successful project? Is that something that your boss is going to be happy with? I really don't think so. So you tell boss, if you really don't want your career wrecked, I really suggest that you write software that just works. And the final one here, this is fairly recent, is, and if that doesn't work, if you aren't worried about losing your job, well, maybe you'll be worried about getting shot. Remember in April, I think it was, there was that one user of YouTube that was really pissed off and came to YouTube with a rifle and started shooting people? He was pissed off by bad software. You think I'm making this up? I'm not. Go look it up, and that's what would happen. So put this up on your office walls and say, guys, we need to make software that just works. Because if we get people angry, that's not a good thing. All right, so now that I've showed you that software can just work, I've showed you how to convince your boss that you should do it. All right, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. I was on the internet, I was looking, there was some article said, 37 ways to prevent identity theft. And I thought, 37? Different things I gotta do? Forget it, the bad guys can just have the damn thing, I don't care. I can't remember 37 things, I can't remember 30 things, I can barely remember 7 things. So I'm gonna give you a Platsky handful, 5 things, maybe you can remember 2 of them if you're lucky. Right? 5 things, 5 ways to write software that just works. Well, here, number 1, you need an interaction specialist, okay? People think user experience, user interface, and what do they think? They think you're talking about fonts and colors. You hear designer and they think graphic designer. That's not it. You need an interaction designer, somebody who will help you understand who your user is and what your user needs and what your user is able to do and not able to do. You need this in the very beginning before you can decide what code to write. For example, should your document save manually the way Word does? Or should it save automatically the way OneNote does? Which one is better? It depends. It depends on who your user is and what percentage of the time your user actually saves the document. You need somebody who to help you figure that out before you can write a single byte of code. I talk to so many companies that say, well, we'll get the code to work right and then we'll throw it over to the designers. No, you're misunderstanding what designers are for. This is decoration. That's not what I'm talking about. And Cheryl Platt, to whom I am not related, some people asked, will be telling us later. She is a designer, but works with Microsoft with the people that are designing chatbots from the very beginning, helping them understand what kind of cases they need to handle and how the users are feeling when they're doing this and doing that, and when they try to do A and it doesn't work, and they try to do B and what they need to do, things like this. And I'm very much looking forward to her talk because I want to hear just how they do these kinds of things. And that is the kind of thing that you need to do from the beginning. You need an interaction designer from the start. All right? Number 2, you need to test. You need to work with real users. Now, how do you do this? Okay, it's easy to recruit users. How do you test before the software works? And the answer is you test with mock-ups. All right? You have to start immediately with sketches. You always say, oh, well, we can't test the software. We got to wait until we have it written. No, that's the whole point. You have to test the layout, test the sketches before you code, because code is expensive and sketches are very cheap. And if you say, well, as soon as we get the code written, we'll test it. Well, no, because the code takes way too long to write. You always run out of test time. You omit the test, and if you don't omit the test, it's too late to change anything. You have to test before the code. Here is an example. Use Balsamiq is my favorite sketch tool, but find one. Here's an example from my book, The Joy of UX. I was trying to design a better a commuter rail program, the trains in Boston. Here, this is the sketch that I did on Monday. I was trying to get it to work, and I showed users this sketch. I had some test users from my class. I said, hey, who here rides commuter rail? I got 5 or 6 hands, and I said, okay, can I show you these over Skype? And so I did this test and this sketch, and I showed them to a user on Skype. And I said, okay, you wake up in the morning in Ipswich, it's 6 o'clock, you want to know where's the next train, what do you do? And I just shared the screen, And they looked and they said, okay, well, Anyway, by the time we got done with this, here's what they said. They said, okay, it's kind of cramped. There's a lot of stuff going on in a small space, which is true. You've got the ticket at the bottom, you've got the departures on the left, the arrivals on the right. It's hard to do. It's hard to find the next train. There's so much going on. This doesn't work. And that's okay. It is okay to not be you're not even supposed to be very good in the first sketch. The idea is to get the user talking and thinking, saying, if you say, what do you need? They don't know. But if they say, do you like this? They will invariably say, well, I like this over here. I don't like that over there. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention such and such. Every single time without exception. I like this, I hate that, and oh, by the way. And here's the next one. And I used a tab. I've got the schedules on the left tab. I put the ticket on a tab that is behind, and I was wondering if they would be happy with that. I wondered if tabs were too much of a PC idiom and if they would work on a phone. And yeah, they all picked it right up. That was no problem. And then I showed them this, and this was brilliant. They say, better, but I don't care about tonight's trains. You got the morning trains on the top and the afternoon trains in the middle. And they said, this is better, but in the morning I don't care about the afternoon trains, so don't bother showing them to me. They only confuse things. And in the afternoon, I don't care about the morning trains, so don't bother showing to me, they just confuse things. And then, here, this is the most beautiful, brilliant thing in the world. You can't really see it well, but they're at the bottom, if you see the last box. Next train to North Station, arriving at Ipswich in 11 minutes and 17 seconds. That is the next train timer. And right here, my friends, this is the thing. This is what you find. One user looked at that and said, oh, you know what? I need that timer at the very top so I know if I need to run. Isn't that the most brilliant thing in the entire universe? I never thought of that, not for a microsecond. But you show this to users, and they will tell you this, and you will find these things. And this is a double head hitter. You know, when you first see it, when I first saw this, you hit your head. I never for a microsecond imagined this. And then within another 30 seconds, you're hitting your head and saying, what could be more obvious than this? Right? And so right there, that is what I got from the user. And so on this next design here, there at the top, the next train from Ipswich to North Station departs in 11 minutes on track 3. And there are the rest of them. Now, compare that to the first one. Isn't that so very much better? And how did I get that? I got that by showing sketches to users, and it only took me a week. And it didn't cost that much to do this. Now, think if I had done this in code, it would have taken forever, and I wouldn't have gotten it anywhere near as good. Anybody have kids that have gone through like the Disney princess stage? They play the Cinderella CD and all that. You guys do any of those? There's a song in Pocahontas that says, when you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you learn things you never knew you never knew. And right there, that's it. That's my example. That's the one that I never knew that. And bam, that was amazing. And that's what you've got to do. Test with inexpensive sketches rapidly iterated. And you get this information from users, and you get it quickly and cheaply before you have to write and throw away expensive code. Right there, more than anything else. And on Friday, they liked it much better. Easier to send the inbound trains. I'll get to night's train, trains from the outbound tab. Piece of cake. All right. Now, step 3, bosses, they always want numbers, so we got to quantify this. I was talking with Cheryl a little bit the other day, and one of the problems with anything in the UX business is it's very hard to quantify what is the value of a good UX. We got a good UX over here, we got a bad one over there. How much money is that worth? It is very hard to calculate that. But I did manage to calculate how bad an interface is. That one I figured out. Okay. Remember the APGAR score? Who here's had a kid, right? Who here has had a child? All right. Well, in delivery room, remember the nurse calculates the APGAR score at 1 minute and 5 minutes. It is a very, very quick calculation of the health of a newborn. Is it breathing? Is it moving? Etc. Okay? That's the APGAR score. And it's a value from 1 to 10. How healthy is this newborn? Very easy to calculate, very easy to understand. Higher is better. Bing, bing, bing. Okay. I figured that out for software. You're wondering how, aren't you? Actually, it's fairly easy. I call it the PWS, Platsky's WTF score. It is the number of times the user says WTF when they're trying to do whatever it is that you give them. Here's how it started, right? I was trying to get my phones on the network at Harvard. I was teaching Xamarin. We got a class on Xamarin later on today. Go to that, it's good. I teach that at Harvard summer school. If you want to fly to Cambridge this summer, you can have 3 weeks of me teaching that. But anyway, I was trying to connect my phones to Harvard Wi-Fi, and my iPhone there on the left, that's what it did. And I said WTF 6 separate times when I was trying to connect the damn thing. And my Android, my Google Nexus, there, I only said WTF 3 times. There you go. The Android is half as bad as the iPhone. Who knew, right? Everybody always thinks the iPhone was easiest, but damn it, I said WTF 6 times. All right. Here's another real example. Connecting my Bluetooth to my phone, to my Honda Odyssey. I said WTF 7 separate times trying to connect the damn thing. I was looking at the paper manual. WTF, like that. My Toyota Corolla was a whole lot easier. I only said it 3 times. And finally, I was doing some work with Microsoft Health Vault. Anybody using Health Vault at all? Yeah, it's about average problem we're having. But anyway, the point is, this is a weight scale, and I was connecting this over the internet. This is how I got the idea. The blip scale, weight scale had I said WTF 9 separate times on that. And 9 separate times, and my Fitbit, I only said it once. So you see how much better the Fitbit is than the other one, right? By a factor of 9. So quantify. Quantify. How bad is the UX? How much better is this one? Quantify. Use the Platsky WTF score. You heard it here first. Number 4, you have to monitor. All right? You have to keep track of what users are actually doing with telemetry. This is something that my daughter uses. Here. This is a mobile app that she uses to look at her grades in school. What's the grade of the next assignment? The problem is that that's not available on the mobile version. And so she brings up the mobile version, and she has to say, okay, here, show me the desktop site. And there is the desktop site, and she's has to scroll through that on her mobile phone, stretching and pinching and stuff. If these guys were paying the least amount of attention, they would notice that as soon as anybody brings up the mobile version, they immediately ask for the mobile site. And they immediately ask for the full site. And they would do something about that, and they would fix it. Finally, number 5, lubricate. That's what you do. You guys use WD-40 here in Greece? Oh, it is the greatest stuff. Yes, it'll get anything unstuck. All right? So much of our programs are just taking an existing process and just lubricating it, making it just a lot smoother. Calling a radio car to go to the airport, you have to talk to them on the phone, you have to read them your credit card number and stuff like this. You have to talk to a human being, spray a little WD-40 on it, and what do you get? Well, you get the Uber app, don't you? All right? It's doing the same thing, just much more smoothly and easily. You've reduced the friction of the process. The same thing here. The Sears catalog, you could order things off the telephone or order things by filling out a paper form, but you lubricate that, and what do you get? Well, you know what? You get Amazon, don't you? All right? They're doing the same thing that Sears did 100 years ago, but they're doing it just much more quickly and easily and smoothly. So that's what you're doing. Think about, the night before you ship. You shouldn't be asking yourself, gosh, how can we cram in one more feature? You should say, hey, where can we squirt in a little more WD-40 and make something easier and smoother? And that's the number 5 things of the Platsky handful. All right? And now, my friends, this is where we are today, where we get false missile alerts because things are put right next to each other when they shouldn't, because somebody did this who didn't know what the hell they were doing. This is where we are. Are we going to let things stay this way? I can't hear you. Are we going to let things stay this way? Okay, no, we're not. We're going to make software not suck. We're going to make it just work. Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.